gonna do K, the first agenda, so it's discussion and motion, Mineral Beach Phase 1, conditional use, subdivision and land development. How are you?
Good evening.
Peter Brady.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody again.
If you could introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Chris Ham with KDH Consulting Engineers. We are the civil site consultant for the project. Mr. Braun should be in just a second.
Yeah, here. There he is. Nope, that's not him.
So obviously this is a project that's been floating through the township for quite some time. I think we've all had a lot of discussions. We also just had the conditional use hearing a few weeks ago where I think we were able to answer a lot of the questions for the board that we're more than happy to answer again if anybody has any questions.
Mr. Braun, you're up. I'm
All right,
sorry.
that's what I
know
get
you
for
probably
going to
didn't
men's
expect
room.
it so soon, but I pushed you up on the agenda since you had paid professionals with me.
All right, great, thank you so much. Let me get my notes.
If you could also introduce yourself, so.
Certainly will, thank you. Chris, you have the stuff. Okay. All right, nothing like jumping right on stage. Ms. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair, gentlemen of the board, Solicitor Nagle, thanks for having us tonight. We're certainly looking forward to continuing our journey together with the Mineral Beach project. We're here tonight to request final approval with conditions upon your board and Mr. Stevens. But I would like the engineer to bring up some display boards that we made. My name is Kevin Braun. I'm the developer that will be developing the ground for Ryan Homes, who will be the builder. And I believe that we started this journey maybe 6 years ago, and before my time, and then about 4 years ago, I was involved in it. And one of the challenges that we had was, as I believe all of you know, was Walter Long Road. And I think we've solved that, I believe, have that recorded, and plan on improving that to township specifications and then dedicating it to township for a public road, and then I believe liquid fuels would be coming back to the township at that point after it's dedicated. Thank you. We have 75 lots in phase 1. We're here just speaking about phase 1. Phase 2 will come down the road. We're here speaking just of phase 1. And we did get the recommendation on Monday night from the Planning Commission to come to you folks tonight. And without further ado, I'll open up the questions, but also have our engineer here to answer any technical questions as well.
Maybe we'll start with PJ. How did it go at the Planning Commission meeting?
I was going to grab a drawing out so that the rest of the board over on that side could see a little better. But so we had our conditional use hearing last Tuesday, April 15th. As you all know, you were here. We had our Planning Commission meeting on Monday night. It was a lengthy meeting. I thought it was a good conversation. There were a lot of questions that were asked by the Planning Commission members, and Kevin and Chris were here to give their presentation, and they, along with myself, tried to answer as many of the questions as possible. Essentially, our office has conducted a very lengthy and thorough review of all of the drawings that have been provided for subdivision as well as for land development. There's the land development drawing set includes all of the roadway designs, roadway profiles, water lines, sanitary sewer lines, stormwater management system, and very importantly, all of the proposed improvements to Walter Long Road. So we talked Monday night with the Planning Commission for a long period of time, and the recommendation that was rendered from the Planning Commission was to conditionally approve the conditional use for planned residential development for the parcel. as well as a conditional approval of the subdivision and the land development. And the conditions of those approvals being that the developer and their engineer satisfy all of the remaining comments in Banks and Engineers' October 8th review letter, receipt of a PennDOT highway occupancy permit, and execution of a developer's agreement, as well as satisfying all of the questions and concerns which were brought up during the conditional use hearing last week regarding PCSA, regarding the easements, regarding the status of the escrow account, regarding the updated traffic impact study which the township requested, among other things. And as we talked about during the hearing, our office submitted that list of discussion points from the hearing to Chris's office, so that everybody is under the same understanding. So that was the result Monday night, and that's why it's now included on the Board of Supervisors agenda after receiving a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission.
And then there's the easement, right, for
Yeah.
Crown Castle.
Yeah, so the easements were one of the things that we talked about at the conditional use hearing, like Chris can attest to, for a long period of time. And in my estimation, the easements are essentially a threefold issue. The first being the emergency access easement situation through the Lisanti Mineral Beach House restaurant property as part number one. Part number two, the relocation, finalizing the relocation of the Crown Castle communication tower access, that being the second part. And the third part being the successful relocation of the overhead electric, which comes straight up the hill from Route 88 to service that communication tower. So that's a big deal. That's been something that's been talked about for a long time. The emergency access is important for obvious reasons, and then the two other easements are important insofar as Mr. Braun can establish his subdivision over top of those underlying easements. So that's basically where things stand with respect to the easements. And there's still work that needs to be done to complete that step.
If I may, Mr. President, at our initial use here, there was a question about receiving some type of documentation as to those easements, right?
Yes.
And where are we at with this, Mr. Braun?
Yeah, so I brought tonight, the agreement from Crown Castle in a letter from, the power company. And they're both taking the same position, which is reasonable, is that we can't vacate something until we have something else. So what they have both indicated is, yes, we have the agreements, and yes, we can talk about them, but until you can show us from Union Township that there's a conditional approval based off of us doing this, we're not going to, it's kind of a chicken and the egg, we're not gonna release something until we have something. We can't release our easement to get to the access tower until we know that you're gonna give us another one by way of an approval of the subdivision. So, to answer your question, yes, I have them, and yes, I have a signed letter from Joe Lisanti about emergency access, granting emergency access. Crown Castle currently has a 20-foot wide easement, access easement across beach lane. So in our agreement, what we're doing is the new Crown Castle access road will be off of Walter Long Road. It will vacate everything within the community of Mineral Beach, but retain the 20-foot emergency access easement that's currently of record through beach. So we will take that over, vacate everything that's on our site, and then build them the new access road to the tower, which is about 18% of the length. They're reducing their length of road by 82%. So they're thrilled with that. So, and then as far as the power company goes, they're obviously not gonna move overhead lines and relocate them until they know that they're going to have, a plan.
Have you seen these documents, Peter?
I saw a version from probably 6 months ago, maybe
probably,
longer,
Mhm.
that were in draft form. I haven't,
They're still in draft form.
have they changed since the ones that,
The only thing that's changed is that the power company did say in their correspondence that if it was that critical to the Board of Supervisors, solicitor and the engineer, that they would reduce to writing a letter that says what I'm telling you. That they will grant and do the work, but they won't do it until they know that their relocation is not going to prohibit them from providing electric.
I think we need something in writing from somebody, would be my recommendation.
It's a condition though, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I have the condition would be that they finalize the relocation completely. That has to take place.
And that's,
Get new easements recorded. That's
Correct.
simply the condition.
let me ask you a question. Do we have any, where are we at, any kind of deemed improvements, or we have no issue with that at all, right now?
No, Kevin's been providing us with extension letters on a routine basis
Doing everything and anything.
for all three of his
I
applications.
just got to give it a deemed improvement to somebody else before it came.
No, we've been pretty diligent, I think, on both sides to,
And I'll be frank, Mr. Braun has been very,
yeah.
general about providing something. All right,
So Dennis, I have a question for
Sure.
you though, and I made this point in our letter under subdivision, and I understand what Kevin's doing, and I've talked with Kevin and Chris about this too, but my question is the nature of that existing easement is now gonna change, right? Like, especially the portion that's going across the beach house restaurant property. I mean, that was a 20 foot, right? 20 foot easement that runs across there. And it was for the purposes of, Crown Castle has it recorded to access their communication tower. But now that purpose for that easement is a lot different. It's going to serve in the capacity of emergency access. So do we need anything from an agreement standpoint between Mr. Braun and that property owner
Mr. Santi?
to recognize that is a emergency access easement? Does that need to be turned over to the township?
I think we should have something.
Yeah, I agree, and I do have the letter from Joe that, and it's a couple of sentences, so I'll just read it out loud, and I brought copies for everyone, but, please use this note as my confirmation that I have previously given permission to use my property as shown on the approved plans and the recorded plat for Mineral Beach as emergency access. I understand, I agree to and understand that this is access to be used in the event of an emergency into the new community of Mineral Beach, and signed Joseph Sandy. So, I know that doesn't hold, we need the easement, but we're connecting dots here.
We need to eventually have a.
There's no consideration. There's no real contract.
Right, there's no real it's an acknowledgement that what I'm sharing with you is not where I'm, we still have to move towards the easement and the vacation and the potentially re-recordation, that's out of it's more in you guys' kind of lane. But Joe has recognized what we're doing, and has agreed to what we're doing.
What's the date of that letter, by the way?
It's,
I'm just saying what I can't see without my glasses.
yeah, it's April 5, 2024.
About a year old, right?
So-
Go ahead.
My question is, are they, and we talked about this at the planning commission and during the hearing, but is there gonna be a gate there? Is it gonna be locked? Are there gonna be bollards? you know, who gets a key
We
Yeah,
talked about that about a couple weeks ago, didn't we, about,
Yes.
at the hearing, but that's kind of what I'm saying, I think all of that needs to be clarified and spelled out and
And I
make its
think
way into that agreement.
Like I mentioned on Monday, we'll obviously put a gate there, but, you know, in my experience, when I've done this before, emergency services likes to weigh in on this because, you know, if there is a true emergency and they roll up to a gate that's locked, you know, and where's the key and who has the sensors to open it, and so what we have done in other markets in the same situation is collapsible bollards, you know, to where the cars can't drive through, but a fire truck or an ambulance, in the case of a real emergency where somebody is in need of emergency services, they can just blow through them. As opposed to, again, I mean, we'll do either, it doesn't matter, but it seems to be safer.
I know one place, some places they have, they call a lockbox. You know what I'm talking about? What's that?
Or a pin pad, I know PennDOT has a bunch of them around town where it's a pin pad.
No, there's a myriad of different ways.
Absolutely.
I mean, but I think what we need to do is, maybe we could put something like that in the developers agreement about, like we did in another township.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah, we'd
think,
be fine with that.
you know, but I think if we grant anything, it's gonna have to be some type of, something, go ahead.
I have a question. So this easement for the emergency access.
Yeah.
Once they're done building their houses and they're gone, does that easement get turned over to the township and we have the easement?
No,
Who has the easement?
The easement's gonna be.
Public, right?
No,
It'd probably be the HOA.
It's a question
it's
I
not
have,
township,
yeah,
we're
I
not
agree.
gonna, I
It
know,
would be the HOA that has the easement, so
it's not gonna be the town.
if a truck blows through the gate, it's their problem. But I'm more concerned with, isn't there a culvert or something that drives over a creek there?
Right at that spot, yeah, and that's being replaced as part of this project.
I get that, but like I
But
just wanna know
that
who's
one's
gonna
not
own that easement.
We have
How do we make sure that
the
that's always
mechanism,
maintained?
it's been approved
South
to be
Bay
replaced if we need it,
South Bay Township, what we do, we put the onus,
because we did that with all
the
the.
developer / HOA is maintaining it, he's responsible.
Okay, cause Joe will own it, apparently, it'll just be an easement for fire.
There will be an easement, basically, with, saying basically that we call emergency vehicles, whatever you call those, you know, will go
I'm
through.
saying if the owner of the property fails to maintain the culvert, tid whistle, whatever it is, if he fails to maintain it, who's responsible?
The owner, it's gonna be who has, the grantee of the easement's gonna be the responsible person to maintain that, okay? Not the township, not Mr. Lasanti.
Okay, that's why I didn't know how that works, since it's his bridge technically.
But there'll have to be something in writing saying that he's gonna be responsible for maintaining it. I don't want the township to be maintaining it.
That's what I'm saying, I didn't know who the easement was.
We'll follow the same format we did in South Bay, just recently.
I've just never did this before,
Yeah.
so I was trying to figure out
Same.
how that
So
goes.
So they have two accesses to their housing plan, right? The one on Walter Long Road,
Yeah,
where it's gonna be spelled out in the developer's agreement, a certain amount of the building permit will be, when the building permits are issued, money will be deposited in the escrow account to do the repairs for the bridge. That is that situation. Now, over at your emergency access, you also cross the same stream. And on their land development drawings, they're calling for that culvert to be replaced right there. So there will be a brand new culvert that's installed for the emergency access. And then, you know, probably it's best if the HOA maintains that easement across the beach house property to Route 88.
That's how we
and
just
that'll
did,
be in the
and
agreement,
that's how we just did South Bay Township, the one, the development there.
I think that's for the best.
cause I'm
And
sure,
we'll just put that in the declaration, right, for the CCRs.
I just know that if I was Joe Listani and that bridge went, I'd be like, well, I don't need it, why do I have to put in a new bridge for them, and I just see that happening. I just wanna know who would be responsible to always make sure that was usable for fire trucks.
Be the HOA.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
This conditional use, our road study, the bridge, and the easements, et cetera, et cetera. How does this go forward? He documents the easements and all the paperwork, whatever. Is all that stuff done in parallel with him, the developer building these units? Or is it before he builds a unit, or post?
Do you wanna address that, Dennis, or do you want me to?
Well, the question you're asking is about the HOP, or what are you
What I
asking?
don't wanna do, the guy builds up 100 units up there and we're still
He
looking for
wants
the
to know
PennDOT
how
study
far
or
can
the
he-
easements.
How far can he move forward?
Well, didn't we say in the last meeting, we wanted some type of study or something, what information they had?
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
part of the planning committee.
No, that's part of the conditional use. I
No,
think.
I think
Yeah, it
the
is.
question, yes, the conditions will be met before we get a.
Before you put another shovel in the ground, are these things satisfied?
Yes.
Okay, so that was my
Yes,
question.
yeah,
That's a good question, yes.
Well, build away then.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
anything we do, just again, my concern again is the HOP from the state with that entrance. Any improvements that are necessary, turning lanes, whatever agreement we have, it's not gonna be borne by the township, it's gonna be borne by the developer.
Right.
Correct.
Because that's what I have right now with another place, because if there's any lights and all that, that's not gonna be our responsibility to construct that. We'll do what we did with another township.
We won't have to worry about that. If there's a light, it'll end up being quad trails.
Okay. Hey, let me ask you one other question. I signed a check to pay that deductible for that mandamus situation with you guys. Is that withdrawn?
No, the mandamus is still alive,
Well,
It
why isn't it withdrawn?
because he wouldn't withdraw it until we get this thing consummated. I mean, the mandamus was saying basically, it's just sitting there right now. Mandamus is saying basically the township, he wants the township to go through with it, but once we get through this process, I'm assuming the developer's agreement, then the mandamus should go away, am I correct?
You are.
I think Larry wants to know that we're all just friends. and
Well,
we're working together.
We approved a conditional approval to go ahead and proceed with the project. Welcome to the township, okay? So to me, that means unless he falls and not satisfied the conditions, there shouldn't be any issue
Yeah,
about
but we
withdrawing the
haven't-
mandamus.
We haven't done that yet.
I-
just had a
Well, we
hearing
are
from the
tonight,
plan.
right?
Well,
soon,
I
but-
would, I think if we get to the process of the agreement, then basically everything is moot in terms of the issue, it's no longer an issue. What's that? What, TJ?
I'm good. Larry, just to address your earlier point,
We talk
Con-
Chinese sometimes, and
conditional-
I'm not that smart of a guy.
conditional approval is,
Gives him
nothing's
the power to
approved
build it
until,
then, just satisfy these conditions, right?
nothing's approved until every one of those conditions is met. So if he fails to meet the conditions, he doesn't have approval.
Well, I'm sure he's gonna be diligent enough to attack them with expeditious process and satisfy that what our needs are. He can build, and do what he needs to do, let him make some money out there.
But I'm assuming if I'm his attorney, I would want to keep the mandamus out there until we get through the process.
It doesn't cost them anything to leave it sitting on the table.
Well,
that's-
it's this legal crap that, it always seems to hang over our heads. all the time.
Yeah, these are really good questions. I'm glad we're having
I
a
don't know if
conversation.
it's good, it's my question.
No, and I think it's good to have the conversation. In the spirit of complete transparency, I've had conversations with Mr. Stevens about how we have and how I have grown through this process. It hasn't been easy, it's,
6 years we can tell.
I mean, I had 4 kids living at home
You were
when this
single back
started.
then?
I was single, I'm married, the kids are gone, I have no hair, it's all the same, like, it's been a long time.
Welcome to our world.
But the goal is we want to do a good job. We want to be good partners. We've worked hard with, the engineer's request. We've worked hard through the engineer requests that have come through you. Have we hit a home run every time? Of course not. Have I been upset and pushed back? Of course. At the end of the day, we want to be good partners. We want you to be proud of what we're doing. We want to be good people within the community, not just come in and build houses and leave. We want to make sure that, it's beautiful and something that can be represented that, hey, these people didn't come in and just drop and go. I'm not from out of town. I live in Pittsburgh, I was born and raised here. I'm not out of state developer, and we're gonna do a good job. We're gonna be good partners. Or my mom, who grew up here and she still shows me pictures of her at the beach, will meet me.
You were in the paper yesterday, by the way,
Was I?
in the Observer report yesterday. Suzanne was in the article.
But Mr. Spear, I can tell you as much, I've been dealing with one of them. When he first began, he was pretty difficult to deal with. But in the recent actions, he's been very easy to deal with. He's been very And again,
I'm not suggesting he is, I'm just saying, this is the conditions, build away, satisfied, let's get on with this thing. That's
What
all.
what are our legal rights on, one of the conditions being met that has to do with the traffic study? Like,
So, the traffic study is 5.5 years old. Right? It's January of 2020 that the traffic study was done. Now, ultimately, that's a PennDOT highway out there. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but PennDOT will have the final say with respect to the traffic study when they review the HOP application. And PennDOT will make the final determination if any improvements are needed on the state highway. The township doesn't have much in the way of say in that situation. Now, I think it's a good idea for the traffic study to be updated. A lot has changed in this community in 5.5 years. I'm not gonna speak for PennDOT obviously, but there's a better than not chance that PennDOT may ask for that traffic study to be updated when they review the HOP, just because it's 5.5.
well, just like we have in South Main with Burke Manor, we have the Route 19, it's, you know, a racetrack road, it's coming right there. So what they've said basically is, Stephanie Woodlash, I spoke to her, and she said the traffic study is gonna be necessary by the developer. So when he makes his application or whatever, they're going to say, we need some information, and then what's gonna happen is, they're gonna say basically, you need to make X, Y, Z in terms of improvements. At that point in time, the township needs probably the right to make my recommendation would be that any improvements necessary, widening of the roads, any traffic lights, so forth, is gonna be borne by the developer. But PennDOT, when they make their application, okay, they're gonna look at it and say, well, this needs updated or something, and then based on when that happens, that's what the process. But anything we do, I don't want the township to be responsible. Good.
And that would be in the developer's agreement too.
That would be the developers, because I have that situation right now with Burke Manor.
so what is their application to change it from a low volume driveway or private road to just, because apparently they have an HOP for all too long. They're just changing what type of HOP they have?
Well, that's, from everything we've had, there's not actually technically an HOP for water
Okay.
on right now. But PennDOT's,
There is no HOP.
there is no HOP.
We know that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because PennDOT, there are two types of driveways, roadways in Pennsylvania, permitted and not permitted. That's it. There's no grandfather, there's nothing. What PennDOT doesn't do is, they don't go looking for the unpermitted ones,
Yeah.
as long as they're not a nuisance.
So that was originally put in by the federal government. Department
Yeah,
of
and it's hard to say how that went down, so yeah, that's, like everyone's, probably most of the driveways, individual driveways along 80 are unpermitted driveways. But PennDOT's not coming through saying, we're gonna close it because there's no permit. Now, if you wanna make any improvements to it, that's when PennDOT gets to sink their teeth into, yeah.
But that's all gonna be borne.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there are, the business part, the economics part of it, was based off of the 2020 study where there was nothing required. So, I mean, just in the spirit of complete transparency, if PennDOT comes back and says, hey, you need to put a $700,000 traffic light out there, just the sheer economics don't work, you know? So then, you know, you don't, at that point, you don't fight City Hall, you don't fight Penn. If there's a requirement, there's a requirement. There's sort of no gray area, and there would be no development until maybe sometime in the future where, you know, maybe you could sell a $700,000 to $800,000 house, because that's what lots would have to be. You know, that's what they would represent. We don't suspect that'll happen, but if, you know, PennDOT says, hey, because of Tractor Supply and because of the one across the street up on the hill, and, you know, now there are some changes, you know, turning lanes, you know, a little bit of road widening or cleanup. Those, typically we build in some contingency money for that kind of stuff, but traffic lights are a whole different animal.
They're horrendous.
Yeah,
Roaching killer, huh?
yeah, for sure,
So that's,
for sure.
if I understand last week, discussion was, you know, like a light at the bottom of all the long roads, or a turning lane, things of that, or something. That decision will be made by PennDOT.
PennDOT will make they'll make an application to PennDOT. And PennDOT will look at it. They have the traffic engineers, they'll say, you need to either widen it, like you're telling me right now on 19, the developers gonna have to widen it where that intersection is, so that's gonna be the responsibility of the developers.
So that does not become a condition on the approval of the project, rather it is something that PennDOT will do.
Well,
automatically.
when we write, when there's gonna be a written condition, because I don't have to transfer it yet. One of the conditions will be basically saying that they secure the approach, and I heard because last night I was with Costco. So what we'll do, we'll put that in writing saying that the condition is.
Meet all requirements
Right,
of PennDOT.
the township assumes no cost.
Correct. So one of the conditions will be an HOP, a highway occupancy permit. They will not issue that highway occupancy permit if there are improvements that are off-site, like a turning lane or whatever, are required. And we say, hey, we're not doing them, they won't issue the permit, so we're not going anywhere anyhow.
Right.
And that's one of the conditions of what the board is voting on.
Correct.
That's one of the conditions of the approval would be that permit.
So TJ mentioned that, developers doing the Peters Creek sanitary. Talking with them, someone who was there also, these things, developers. Did you give us this microphone?
Yes, sir, you're exactly correct. One of the conditions that you all had from the conditional use hearing was the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority Developers Agreement. And when Mr. Stevens sent that to Chris and I forwarded back to Mr. Stevens the 2022 Developers Agreement that's executed by all parties. But at that time, Lasanti was on it, and the old developer was on it, and I was on it. And so the sanitary authority said that all those people need to come off, so we have to redo that developer's agreement with just our company's name on it because we're the legal owner now and not Lasanti. So yes, you're correct, 100% correct.
Because typically, a lot of places, whenever you go through the sewage planning approval process, a lot of areas do not require you to have a developer's agreement at that point in time. PCSA, that's just one of their mechanisms that you have to have a developer's agreement in place based upon their interpretation of DEP law. And that's, like I said, at the time, there was 3 property owners involved with the single site.
I was in another township the other day, Canton Township, there's a 400 housing unit development down here. There was an issue about having the stormwater going into the state highway, because it's on 844. Do we have that issue here, by the way?
No.
No.
All right, because that was a big issue then.
Yeah, no, we're not connecting anything to any PennDOT systems.
All right.
Good luck. We'll need it. But I do appreciate, and Ms. Chair, you and I have been doing the dance for a long time, right?
They do
And it's been quite a journey, but we are, all comments and kidding aside, we're excited to get started and produce a good product that is worthy of the township and makes all of you and the residents
So just
proud.
like the church was
Yeah.
very excited for the project.
Yeah, and we've gotten multiple calls from the church, and the comment that was used to me was, we're excited about getting a new front door. That was the
Oh,
comment.
Pastor Ken.
So, we're excited about getting a new front door when that time comes. But thank you for allowing us to come in front of you.
So what are we here with tonight, TJ?
Well, conditional use hearing is done, planning commission made their recommendations, so I believe all 3 applications are
Did we,
on the discussion for a vote.
and we didn't make a decision on the conditional use that day, did
We
we?
did not, we closed the hearing without any
Yeah.
vote being taken.
And if I'm correct, we have 45 days to make a decision on the conditional use.
Yeah, I did look that up, and the ordinance says a couple different things, a couple different places.
But if it does, then we have to look at the MPC. All right.
That's your area of expertise.
I had that too. All right,
I'm only so good at reading ordinances, Dennis.
so, I know, but I'm looking, I had the issue the other night with MPC, how quick do you need things to be done, Mr. Ron?
Thank you, yes, that's my answer. There's really a domino effect, because as we talked about the power, easements and emergency access and cell tower and all the things, they start to domino after we have a conditional approval where I can have something on Union Township letterhead that I can take to Crown Castle and say, okay, this is what you were waiting for. Until I get you to release that easement, you know, I can't move forward with, to your point, you know, starting construction, because I have to satisfy these conditions. So the sooner that we can get the conditional approval that allows us to go work on the conditions, then, you know, I mean, we're still months away from getting started, but step one is to get the conditional approval that allows us to go and knock out some of these other things.
All right, so, and again, we don't have the transcript done yet either, do we? I always like, even though, I don't know what the board's gonna do, they're probably gonna consent, but I always like having, if we do something, the consent should include any conditions that we have, and put it in writing rather than just saying we're gonna grant it.
Agreed. Agreed.
TJ, I don't, like I said, I'm not, I've probably had half a dozen public hearings this month already.
There's been a gentleman with his hand up back there, Mr. Lenny Lika. Is it pertinent to this, Mr.? We don't normally
Yeah, I'm
have
gonna
public
talk.
comment during
I got some questions for TJ.
About
dealing
this?
with this.
Yes.
What was your?
Well, years ago, they stripped mine to the top of that hill behind Mineral Beach. I bought coal back here. I think
Yeah.
Vic Dawsey did it.
Yeah.
And there was another vein of coal much deeper.
Yeah.
They didn't want to remove the whole top of the hill.
Yeah.
So they horizontally bored and drug the coal out. You know anything about that, TJ?
I don't know.
Well,
I can let Chris talk
Like we
about-
mentioned, I know we actually talked about some of this on Monday as well. There's been extensive geotech done on this site. We'll have geotech engineers during construction. Probably the most telling thing is his bank would not be proceeding with the project if they saw any major hurdles on the geotechnical side.
Well, if there's voids underneath there, I don't know where you want to build a bunch of houses on top of there.
I think every house in the state has a mine underneath it.
And every, you know, this is certainly not my level of expertise going into mining, so that's the caveat. But we have done tremendous amount of work in areas of Westmoreland County where there's a lot of shallow mine, you know, as long as the geotech, and that's what happens is sometimes when you see these communities laid out, you see all this green space, you know, why aren't they building all the houses over there? You know, it's beautiful over there. Well, it's because the geotechnical reports that came back said, hey, stay away from there because of, you know, shallow mining or boring or whatnot. So, and that's the other reason why it's real healthy to have a township like yours that has a PRD so that you can, you know, take all this land and create more green space where there could be some problematic areas and create the infrastructure in a smaller area. Also helps with roadway maintenance and everything else. But yes, I mean, it's a great question, and we've done extensive geotechnical studies, and we'll have geotech engineers on site and all that kind of thing.
Submission of the geotechnical engineer's report to the township is a requirement of the ordinances as well, which they comply with. So, you know, obviously it's not our responsibility to design the site. We just review what is submitted to us to verify that it conforms to your ordinances. And they did submit a sealed geotech engineer's report
And beyond
to
that,
support.
And Ryan Holmes is the builder on this, and they review everything before they commit the properties as well. So that step has been looked at by quite a few different parties.
I think from a condition standpoint, and again, your lane, not mine, but since there's no transcript, can we not mirror the conditions from Monday? Because those include the conditions.
What were the conditions?
October 8th letter, and then from your conditional use hearing, the conditions from the conditional use hearing.
Do you have them here? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
You captured everything in your October 8th, or your 8th, plus from the 8th.
Plus your
Yes.
email from Monday.
right, and the email that we sent Monday after the hearing.
Yeah, and we chipped away at that October 8th letter pretty well, I think.
For sure.
so basically, what were the conditions for Monday, by the way?
So,
From your email.
yeah, from the hearing, the points coming out of the hearing, we asked for justification for the requested modifications. Remember, they have the smaller setbacks, they have the smaller lots, they have a tighter horizontal curb radius.
Right.
Okay,
We asked for justification for those.
did we
that
get
was the
that, did we
first.
get that yet or not?
It came today at what, 2 o'clock?
Yeah, and I have copies if anybody wants.
And have you reviewed it yet or not?
I have not. I was here all afternoon.
Okay,
The second thing we asked for was a copy of the developer's agreement with Peters Creek Sanitary Authority and the capacity availability letter.
and do we have that?
We received the copy of the developer's agreement.
And I'll re-forward the and the approval from the state.
Then, we were talking about that a second ago, but he'll need to enter a new developer's agreement that doesn't have Lisanti and, who was the other person? Brensel on there.
Shay.
But I
And
think,
Shay.
but I think both the authority and the developer acknowledge that they need to redo the developer's agreement since it's old and no longer the right owners.
Okay, what else is on the agenda?
The easements,
Those are crucial.
we talked about, and there's 3 components of that. We asked for a cost estimate to repair the culvert, that carries Walter Long Road over that stream there. Chris gave me a cost estimate Monday night before the planning commission meeting, so, I will review that. And then the other items were reconciling the escrow account with the township and updating the traffic impact study, providing a new traffic impact study that's not 5 years old.
So, what we could do is make a motion to approve conditional use, subject to the developer satisfying the comments of the engineer's October 8th letter to his sole satisfaction, submitting the appropriate paperwork. And you're videotaping this? Submitting the appropriate paperwork as to the easements to the satisfaction of the township engineer and the solicitor. 3, that any and all costs involved with the HOP application for PennDOT shall not be the responsibility of the township, but shall be the responsibility. I know it's premature, but I had this last night with the transit company. But it, basically, I want them to understand that basically if there's any improvements necessary, the township will not be responsible for that. That's gonna be there. And I think, because I think we've been doing a great job so far, last couple of months, last couple of years. So that responsibility has to be there. If they comply with any and all township ordinances, rules, and regulations, comma, state laws, federal laws, etc. That they enter into a developer's agreement with the township that provides remuneration for the construction or repair of that bridge, or is it a bridge or culvert on Walter Long Road? Culvert on Walter Long Road. And I think we already have some understanding, if I'm correct, Mr. Braun, how we're
Yes,
going
sir.
to do that.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything else I'm missing?
Post financial surety for the, public improvements. But that's in the
Is
letter.
there any,
That'll
is there
be in
any,
the developer's
is there any,
agreement.
what public improvements? The pickleball court's gone, isn't it?
Yes.
The roadways and
Oh,
the
okay,
storm
right.
sewers.
Yeah. So that'll be developers.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
No.
And that basically that, Mr. Spears made a good comment, that once the developer's agreement is approved between the township and Mr. Braun, that Mr. Braun will file the appropriate paperwork settling this case, file a press to discontinue the case with the Court of Common Pleas. Because once we get that done, it's all over with, right?
Mhm.
And, is that right? Do you have a problem with that, Mr. Braun, or not?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so that would be, go ahead, TJ.
I just have a question about that, and it's my ignorance, so forgive me, but once the vote is taken, could that be withdrawn? I mean, isn't that the
It
sole
could,
reason for the mandamus to?
Well, it could be, but that's up to him, but if I were him, I'd wanna make sure I have carried over top of us, but I'm just, telling you how I was doing it.
You're our attorney.
I know, but I understand, but do you have a problem with drawing it, once conditional use is granted? Or do you need to talk to your attorney about it?
Yeah, I think I need to, but in the spirit of good relation, the idea is to get through this, get a shovel in the ground and build houses. That's what we
So do
do.
you have a problem with, once you see the conditional use and the development, I mean,
From an elementary or rudimentary standpoint, I don't. I just don't know, to your point, talking with Bernie, I don't know if I step in something that I shouldn't be stepping in. I wanna go on record as saying, the spirit of what we're trying to do is develop the ground, build homes, and put all this journey behind us.
here's the language, Mr. Spears does raise a good question, good point. That, upon consulting with his attorney, that, the charges, that the complaint, the mandate is withdrawn.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, sure.
That's the motion. I think I did everything, didn't I, DJ?
Got everything on my end.
Yep. Got everything on my end.
Need a motion made, no?
The motion made, a second, and then what you need to do,
Janice was right.
all right, so it's on the videotape, she knows what the videotape. I'll recapitulate tomorrow maybe. But what I need to do is, we need to put this in writing to Mr. Braun, or Mr. Ham, whoever.
It is all spelled out in that letter anyway.
I'd like copies,
So, one other thing to
Sure.
clarify. Would you do this as multiple motions since it's 3 applications, or can you do all of
No,
them?
just, we'll do the conditional use first.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we did, then we go seriatim when we get into.
Yep, agreed.
Okay.
Each one of those motions are gonna be conditioned upon those things that we spoke, correct?
They're all seriatim.
Correct.
Okay, so Ms. Bainham has made the motion for the
Conditional use.
conditional use. Sean Bainham has made the motion for the conditional use, and Carl Hanford has seconded. Anybody else have any questions? All in favor on the conditional use? Aye. Okay, so, motion on the subdivision and land development.
I'll make the motion.
Paul made the motion, I will second the motion. Any questions on the subdivision and land development?
TJ, do you have anything to say about that, about the subdivision?
No, just the same conditions would
So the motion,
stand.
the motion is to approve those items, subject to the same conditions as set forth in terms of the approval of conditional use.
My only other note, Dennis, would be that the conditional use is for both phase 1 and phase 2, and the subdivision and land development is just for
Exactly.
phase 1.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Phase 2 to follow later.
That's
So conditional use is for phase 1 and 2?
Correct.
Okay, the way it's on the agenda is 1, so we definitely will have to, motion Mineral Beach phase 1 conditional use.
They applied for both.
So that'll be for.
So, Suzanne made that motion, Carl seconded. You don't want to amend it, you face on that backwards for.
No, we just, no, for the record, that
Okay,
one.
that for the record is phase 1 and 2 of the conditional use. On the subdivision and land development, the motion that's currently there made by Carl, second by me, is for phase 1 only, correct, DJ?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion for subdivision and land use development phase 1. Anyone else have any questions about that?
TJ, did you say you got a letter explaining the setbacks? Did you get it yet?
I got it today at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so I haven't reviewed it yet.
So anything he's reviewed, anything in the conditions is to his satisfaction, so that would include that. Correct, Mr. Ham?
Yes. Yes.
So with all the same conditions as the conditional use, the subdivision land development phase 1 made by Carl, second by myself, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
all we need to do tonight?
Did you do land development and
They did
subdivision together?
We didn't know, we did a,
Subdivision.
We did them together.
Did it
Yeah,
together?
subdivision and land
Yes,
development went
together,
together.
subdivision and land development.
wait for it on the agenda by TJ.
Is that okay if you do both? Yeah, all right, so you're done, everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Conditional use was for phase 1 and phase 2, and subdivision and land development was for phase 1 only.
Yes, correct. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.